Since the dawn of the GAA in 1884, the telling of its stories have been just as important as the sports. Through the years, heroes and matches have been immortalised, inspiring generation after generation. But some of its most important stories have also gotten lost or turned into legend. And in this series, we will explore some of the GAA's most fascinating forgotten tales, separating rumour from reality and myth from the truth that is often more amazing than the fiction. I'm Michael Foley.
And I'm Ciaran O'Hara.
So join us for Over the Bar, exploring the histories of the GAA.
Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
Okay, make a bit of context now. We're here on our own this week. And the reason we are is because I think I can safely say, and you can be bashful, you are one of the foremost authorities on Bloody Sunday in Croke Park. For those who doubt me, go out and buy a copy of The Bloodied Field.
Yeah. My unhealthy obsession with Bloody Sunday is poured into that one book, and then it kind of just flooded out into all kinds of other bits and pieces in the years since. But yeah, if I have one tiny me-shaped wheelhouse that just it's the only thing that I will fit into, it probably is bloody. It would want to be Bloody Sunday 1920 by now, that's for sure. After all the years, you know.
Yeah, but I didn't want to approach our question this week in too easy a manner for you. Probably
Fair
most enough. People's perception of what Bloody Sunday is based upon the dramatization they've seen of it in the Michael Collins movie.
Mm-hmm.
So the question I want to pose to you this week is, how true to fact is that dramatization from the Michael Collins movie?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ciaran. I can answer it for you in 3 seconds.
Please don't. Please don't. We're trying to get a podcast out of this.
Or I could do a half an hour for you on it, no problem. I say the first thing I'd say about it is it's probably two questions. Or there's probably two questions in it, really. There is the straight, how accurate is it? And then but I think the real question, really, because we know that movies can never absolutely nail things like that. Very rarely they go an absolutely granular detail. This is what happened, and because you have to make compromises and to make your art, But I think the bigger question is, does it, I suppose, pay due regard and respect to what the experience of Bloody Sunday in Croke Park would have been like? And I think on that, it definitely gets very close, I think, to what it might have been like there on the day. I mean, very short answer to the top question, it is not accurate. But that's not to say...
There wasn't an armoured car?
Well, there was, but not in the way that it was used in the movie. In the movie, it crashes through the gates of Croke Park and it trundles in and it opens fire eventually on the players and everybody, the spectators and so on. There was an armoured car in Croke Park, but that atrocity began as a search operation. So the idea was that the Black and Tans, the auxiliaries and the RIC mixed force would go into Croke Park, stop the game, and perform a search to see could they find out or glean any information in terms of what had happened that morning when Michael Collins' squad had gone out and shot and killed or mortally wounded 15 alleged spies and agents of the Crown, as they say. So that was the thing. So you had an armoured car outside. If people can imagine now, like Croke Park was totally different then to what it is now. Actually, not far off what you see in the Michael Collins film, which was the Carlisle grounds in Bray, of course, the League of Ireland ground. But you had the armoured car outside at what is now the junction of the Hill and the Cusack stand. So what happened was the firing started at the junction of the Canal end or the Davin end and the Hogan stand at the Canal Bridge outside, if people know their geography of Croke Park. Firing into the ground, all the crowds ran to the top right-hand corner, to that junction of the Hill and the Cusack. And when they went out that gate, the armoured car fired in the air and pushed everybody back, which caused, in effect, a catastrophic crush that killed a number of people. That they weren't gunned down, they were crushed to death. So yes, there was an armoured car. It was not used in the way it was in Michael Collins. But I would, to be fair to the movie, I would say that the use of the armoured car, given the amount of time that they had in the movie to reflect Bloody Sunday, it definitely it brought out the horror. I mean, I watched it twice today in preparation for this. I hadn't watched it in years. And it is a shocking moment in that movie, and a shocking moment that when you have an armoured car turns and literally at point blank range just buries bullets into a Tipperary player, and the next thing, all hell breaks loose in the movie.
Okay, so I guess let's start with the movie, because I remember it coming out at the time. I remember it being filmed at the time. This was a very big deal. This isn't, now we're used to Game of Thrones being made in Belfast and movies being made in Limerick and Wicklow, and like it was a big deal to have a major motion picture made in Ireland. But it was a bigger deal again that Hollywood would pay for a historical epic based on Irish history.
Exactly. I mean, like you say, there wasn't really. I mean, this is more your wheelhouse now in terms of the media, film, television industry. There wasn't really an Irish film industry as such. You had bits and pieces, didn't you? Like they'd made Far and Away down in West Kerry. You had The Field had been made in Galway. But really, there wasn't much of a film industry, certainly not on this scale anyway, was there?
No. And I mean, I think the thing with this is the scale is allowed because Neil Jordan's had a hit with his previous movie.
Exactly.
Well, probably had hits with his previous movies, plural, but he'd had a particularly big hit with Interview with the Vampire. And I think that allowed the studio, which was Geffen Pictures, to say, okay, we'll bankroll this for you.
Yeah. And I mean, in a Hollywood context, it's decent money. In an Irish film industry context, in terms of the investment into the country, it's ginormous. It's a $25 million budget for this thing, which is enormous for the time. I mean, they spent $1.5 million alone on recreating the GPO out in Grange Gorman.
Which only features in the early scenes of the movie. So a large portion of the budget is spent on one extremely large prop, which I remember at the time was the big talking point, the Grange Gorman GPO.
Yeah, and it was really cool. It's really cool in the movie, and it definitely adds to it as opposed to kind of some kind of really poor recreation or kind of I didn't even know how they would have done it on a sound stage or some silliness like that. The interiors, it's really good. But like you say, Jordan was flying. Like Interview with the Vampire was the previous movie, $224 million gross. The Crying Game was the one before that, a couple of years before, $71 million gross. So as you say, he had agency now and he had a bit of power. He had worked on a script around Michael Collins back in the 80s, and he had actually promised the role to Liam Neeson at the time. Now, as Jordan said himself, they nearly both ran out of time because Neeson was 43 by the time they played by the time he played Michael Collins in 1995. There had been others. Michael Cimino. So he done The Deer Hunter, but it's not no surprise to anybody who knows even a little bit of movie history about Michael Cimino that his script was dumped due to cost concerns. After The Deer Hunter, he had gone and made Heaven's Gate, which famously cost $44 million in 1980, grossed $3.5 million, and pretty much ended the era of those type of kind of art house, big budget movies. No more of those. Kevin Costner had a look in the early 90s.
I do remember this one. Costner, I remember attending a game in Croke Park around this time.
Yeah. When I came across this, it evoked memories of articles in the Cork Examiner from around 1992. He was holed up in a big mansion down in West Cork, and he visited Bale and Blaw. He got Owen Harris to write a script. Would you like to know the last line of the script?
Go on.
God, Ireland, I love you. Or probably would have been more, God, Ireland, I love you.
Yeah, look, I think the accent might have been of some concern one way or the other, because we'd have all seen Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves at this stage.
He went off and made Waterworld instead anyway, which I don't know, is that the best career move either? But Costner still talks about making a Collins movie. But anyway, as we say, Neil Jordan has the power, has the passion, has the interest. He has his leading man. Off he goes. And I mean, it's not an enormous hit in terms of the previous movies he'd done. I mean, I think it grossed about, was it 20 odd million? $32.8 million it grossed. 32.8. So it's good, but it doesn't do enormous business in America. Is it still the biggest grossing movie in Ireland?
I think it's been surpassed, but it was certainly at the time the biggest grossing. One of the funnier things about it was Brendan Gleeson is in it as Richard Mulcahy, I think. And I gather that on the first day he did a scene with Liam Neeson, Brendan Gleeson had famously played Michael Collins in The Treaty, a TV movie.
Correct.
And on the first day on set when they met, I think Liam Neeson's opening line was, "How's the real big fella?"
Yeah.
I think he knew that he was already in the shadow of a fairly iconic Gleeson performance.
Love the free episodes of Over the Bar? Then take your passion further with the Corja Club membership. For €5 a month, you'll unlock bonus series and member-only shows, hear the podcast first and ad-free, and get behind-the-scenes access through detailed notes, a newsletter, and Q&As. It's the ultimate GEA history experience, curated by Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara just for you. Upgrade your listening, support the show. Join today at overthebar.club.
But I mean, even before we get on to the Bloody Sunday kind of reenactment, there was pressure. I mean, there was big pressure. I mean, for Neeson playing this iconic character, for Neil Jordan, I mean, he's spoken about, even in the run-in, once the movie was commissioned and it went out publicly that this was going to be made, already there was stuff in the media and historians roaring in, going, it has to be this way, or, it can't be this and it can't be that. And overshadowing all that, you have the reality that the peace process is just getting going. You got the first IRA ceasefire in 94.
Of course.
That is broken during the filming of Michael Collins by the bombing in Canary Wharf by the IRA. On top of that, when this happens, the execs in Hollywood, not surprisingly, get a bit nervous. And they kind of put a bit of pressure on Jordan to pivot more towards the romantic story. Julia Roberts playing Kitty Kiernan, and kind of focus on that maybe more than the politics, So there's pressure coming from all angles on this, even though he's getting the chance, I suppose, to do a personal project, but there is a global element to this that he can't screw it up.
So the prop, for lack of a better word, that is the GPO, was $1.5 million. How much did it cost them to recreate Bloody Sunday? Because it's a massive set piece. It's probably the biggest set piece in the movie.
It probably is. You're right. Yeah. I mean, $1 million they spent on it. Probably the most that's ever been spent in the vicinity of the Carlisle grounds. God bless that wonderful, storied League of Ireland football ground. But 5,000 extras. If you had gone to the All-Ireland football final in 1995 and purchased a programme, you would have come across an ad. It's a fabulous ad. It's a picture of Collins, that kind of famous one of him in full uniform with the cap and his, the way he's pulling on the gloves. Yeah, fixing the gloves. And it's a Kitchener play, It's like, Michael Collins, the film needs you. All it's missing is Collins pointing the finger at you, So I have the ad here in front of me. So up to 5,000 male extras required for the recreation of Bloody Sunday of 1920.
Male only.
Well, brackets, Ciaran. Don't go too fast now.
All right.
Brackets. Women welcome, dressed in male clothing. Venue, the Carlisle Ground, Bray, County Wicklow, 24th September 1995, 1 p.m. I think that would have been this weekend after the All-Ireland final, probably 4th Sunday in September rather than the 3rd.
Yeah.
And to wear, if you were going, bring a dark jacket, dark coat or raincoat, dark trousers, dark shoes, hats and caps. What not to wear, jeans, T-shirts, runners, and what's described as, actually, this is like an expression out of an ad from 1920. Watches or other modern convenience. Whatever that could be.
Don't come in with a ghetto blaster on your shoulder.
Yeah. Leave your flannel shirt and your naff jacket at home. Entertainment provided by Barry Murphy and guests.
Provided entertainment.
Yeah, well, it's a long day. You can imagine. I mean, I come on to it in a second, but some of the guys who were involved, it's like they were there since about 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's a long old day. And film sets, things happen very slowly. The music was the Colonials. I'll leave that to our listeners to fill in the gaps. Children not allowed due to the nature of the scene. Now, here's one for you. As I say, long day. If Barry Murphy hasn't been tickling your funny bone, and the Colonials don't have you sufficiently roused for the scene, you can hold on for the prizes. So I'm guessing there was a raffle. You could have won £1,000 holiday voucher, a 500. It's not bad. A 500 pound holiday voucher. There was mountain bikes, TVs, stereos, your ghetto blaster, Ciaran, and much more. And by the way, the ladies' prize for the best male costume, what do you think would be a good mid-90s prize?
For the ladies, a perfume?
Well, yes, but no. A 1-year free rental from Extravision. That's not bad.
It's not bad.
That's really, I don't think that's bad at all.
I think, considering they're not willing to pay them all salaries for the day, it seems like a fair recompense. So that's the crowd.
Yes.
Who were the footballers?
So the footballers, they went to Dublin for their footballers. So they invited Kilmacrud Crokes, who were the All-Ireland champions at the time. They had won at the previous St. Patrick's Day. And Erin's Isle, Keith Barr, Johnny Barr, all those lads. Go very well.
Finglas.
Yes, going very well at the time. Would have been real competitors at that time for Dublin Championships and more. But they were still in competition. So they declined. But they had very good relations at the time with Éire Óg and Carlow. Éire Óg from Carlow, as people may or may not remember, made umpteen Leinster finals around that time, were very competitive for All-Irelands, but never got over the line for an All-Ireland. But they had a relationship with Erin's Isle. So Éire Óg I don't know whether they mixed the teams up or the guys just grabbed jerseys or what. Certainly a couple of lads from Éire Óg were wearing tip jerseys. In fact, the more I think about it now, because I remember talking to Turlock O'Brien, the Carlow manager from a few years ago, and he was involved in this. He's an Éire Óg man. And he was wearing a tip jersey. In fact, I think his tip jersey was donated to GA Museum. So maybe Éire Óg were the tip team. Okay,
and but this actually leads to my next question. So how faithfully recreated was that? Were the jerseys...
Yeah, pretty close.
Authentic of what would have been worn in the game?
Yeah, like, I mean, Tipperary wore white with a green band, which was the Grange Mochler colours at the time. And the Dublin didn't have the sky blue with the white shorts, which later morphed into the dark shorts under Kevin Heffernan in the 70s. But they had a kind of a mishmash of kind of not light blue, but blue and really dark blue shorts, which you can see in the photographs that were taken before the Bloody Sunday game. And that's what they were wearing in the match. Now, to my eyes, and again, no blame here, but the match as it's played on the screen is a lot more free-flowing, possibly, and skillful, shall we say, at the risk of
than the game may have been in 1920.
Well, just going from the little snippets of Pate newsreel that we have, that's all I'm saying. So to kind of just put it all together, the action, I think Neil Jordan originally wanted this to be 30 seconds long. He wanted the Bloody Sunday scene to be 30 seconds. He gets it all done in about 2 minutes 40, which to me kind of reflects something that happens with Bloody Sunday when you get into this topic. And I know I'm only talking to myself, but I've seen this happen with others as well. Once you become in any way engrossed or connected to this topic, it draws you in, and suddenly you find yourself going the extra mile. You'll do that bit more research. You will just try harder for the story. And I'm thinking that's what happened with Neil Jordan. It has to be said as well that in terms of trying to be accurate, he would have been operating off a very, very limited sort of list of sources. So after Bloody Sunday, the atrocity in Croke Park and everything, there was two courts of military inquiry sat in late 1920. Loads of people who were at the game testified, relations of the victims, Black and Tans, auxiliaries, everybody testified. By the way, I probably should have said at the start, for anybody who's not aware of what happened at Croke Park on Bloody Sunday, I mentioned at the top it was a search operation. When that shooting started and everybody started to run, it lasted for 90 seconds. There was 14 people killed, everything from 3 children to a woman from Dublin who was due to be married the following week and was ultimately buried in her wedding dress. A labourer, Patrick O'Dowd from Dublin, I remember he was sitting on a wall helping people to safety, and he was shot in the head off the wall and landed on the last person he helped, who was a British soldier, as a matter of fact, an off-duty British soldier. And so my point is that it was people from everywhere. There was a guy from Limerick killed, a guy from Wexford killed, Michael Hogan from Tipperary famously, Hogan stand named after him subsequently, was the most famous, but the only player killed. If you look at the Collins film, that armoured car goes crazy. It's taking out players left, right and centre. But again, no fault there. As I was saying, 2 courts of military inquiry came to the conclusion that the firing started inside the ground by persons unknown, and that the Black and Tans auxiliaries were reacting to this.
This is something that's echoed down through other Bloody Sunday inquiries, were I to say it, that they started firing first excuse.
Yeah, sadly, yes. And when we look now, with over 100 years of, I suppose, time to reflect, and the fact that more sources, historical sources, have come on stream, particularly in the last 15 years or so, we can see that there is absolutely no evidence for the firing to have started inside the ground. This was a case of a group of Black and Tans and auxiliaries, incensed by what had happened in the morning, just losing all sense of discipline and self-control.
Seeking reprisals.
And seeking reprisal in the style of the War of Independence at the time. One atrocity is responded with a reprisal. But just going back to those courts of military inquiry, those reports that came out of those revealed a huge amount of information, autopsy reports, all sorts of stuff. But once those reports were concluded in early 1921, they were sealed by the British government until 1999, when they were opened to academics and so on. So my point being,
Neil Jordan didn't have access to this source material.
No. It would have taken an incredible work of research for him to faithfully recreate Bloody Sunday, which gets me to the point that as a set piece, I think it absolutely captures the feeling that must have been there in November 1920 on the day in Croke Park. Frank Coughlin is a columnist for the Irish Independent, was an extra in the Carlisle grounds in 95. And he wrote back in 2020 how he remembered when that armoured car smashes through the gates. He said that actually a wave of tension and kind of fear did just kind of percolate through the crowd. It was almost like people realised, all right, we're here for something. And the thing about the Croke Park massacre that has always, I suppose, and I don't want to say elevated it above other things, because there is no ladder of importance in death. You know, every death is important in its own different way to different people and different circumstances. But that makes it distinctly different in its own way, let's say, is that it happened in Croke Park, somewhere where people went to relax, to enjoy sport. This is not a place, even up to the point on that Sunday morning when the IRA came to Croke Park and warned the GA officials that they should consider stopping this challenge game between Dublin and Tipperary and closing the gates and sending people home. It never really registered with people that they would come and do this. And it's the same atmosphere on screen when you're looking at this, I think. And I think that's what you want to capture. The complete shock.
Love GEA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
There's a critical point to be made there. The only personnel involved that might have known what was going to happen were actors who had access to the script and, you know, the technical and creative personnel on the movie. So you would think that's all done purposely, that you do get that natural reaction, that wave of tension. As you say, it captures it. I did check the because at the time there was when the movie came out, there was quite a bit of uproar among historical circles around the use of the armoured car. And Jordan's rationale for using it is, as you say, to give that dramatic effect, but also to add pace to the scene, because as you've said, it would have taken much longer to play it out. And in the movie, it's actually intercut with, you referenced that the big bosses wanted more romance, but this scene is intercut with the events of that morning, Michael Collins and Katie Kiernan. It's a very dramatic section of the movie because of all the activity on the day. So the purpose of it was just to speed it up. But I do think it is frightening.
It's absolutely shocking. I think it works on any level that you want it to work, or that you would have wanted it to work as a filmmaker. Like, the armoured car smashes through. Colm Hayden from Éire Óg, wearing a Tipperary jersey, kicks the ball over the armoured car, gathers it on the other side and taps it over the bar, and the crowd go crazy. And then the shot changes and there's an actor running back and he's looking, and the machine gun just opens up on him. And it is genuinely shocking, chilling, frightening. Then the armoured car starts opening fire on everybody. And as I say, players are dropping, people are racing and running. It is very, very like what was described by eyewitnesses on the day. People trampling over each other, just running wherever they can to get to safety. In reality, the shooting lasted 90 seconds. I put the clock on it in Michael Collins, and it lasts about 40 seconds. And for me, the 40 seconds felt like a lifetime watching it. So I mean, what 90 seconds must have been like in that place with the firing going. 14 people dead, as I say, one player killed. There is no doubt. If I went through the nuts and bolts of it with you now, like the detail of what happened on Bloody Sunday, a child getting shot out of a tree, another child getting shot in the head off a wall, the actual detail of what happened is more horrifying than what Jordan achieves on screen. But in terms of the feeling, and as you say, the energy you want to get into the movie at that moment, I think he does as good a job as you could possibly expect somebody to do based on the information he would have had at the time and what he had to do in terms of the context of the movie and to keep it moving and give Bloody Sunday its proper context in the terms of the overall Collins story. So I would give him 2 thumbs up for his version of Bloody Sunday in Croke Park. Not accurate, but absolutely, I think, on point in terms of the horror.
Okay, I'm going to come back to now because you've answered that. It's so as regards authenticity, the actuality of the day is the notion that this is a search exercise. Is that purely a pretense? Do we know from the 1999 documents that it was straight out reprisal, or were they actually searching for some of those involved in the shootings that morning?
It's a combination of different things. So yes, I mean, on the morning, Bloody Sunday morning, 21st November 1920, those IRA squads go out to different houses, mainly across South Dublin, the Gresham Hotel as well up on O'Connell Street. But they go to those houses, and as I say, they shoot and mortally wound 15 people. So the reaction is enormous. Dublin Castle is the seat of power. Dublin Castle is completely engulfed by people with any connection at all to the British administration. So you've got civil servants bringing their families in and being just not even being housed, just being kept in the courtyard. They take over hotels around Dublin Castle and they put them in there for safety. Inside, in the, I suppose, in the center, in the war room, if you like, of this place, you have General Sir Neville Macready, the head of the British forces in Ireland, poring over maps, poring over names. Where do we go? Like the British have had, the reason this happens is because the British intelligence network has been getting very close to Collins, who was the head of the IRA's intelligence network, and their extended tentacles, I suppose, into various parts of the British administration. So they're wondering, well, where do we even start looking for these people? And they look at the game and they say, okay, Tipperary at the time was a hotbed for the War of Independence. I often describe it, in Dublin, there's a Cold War. There are people getting killed on the street, but it's a Cold War. It's an intelligence war. Down in Tipperary, Munster, other areas, it's a hot war. There's proper ambushes. There's serious combat. So they see these Tipperary guys coming up, and correctly, there are a number of players, including Michael Hogan, on the Tipperary team who are IRA volunteers. Michael Hogan brought messages up to a bar that night, the Saturday night before, from Sean Hogan, who was one of the famous IRA men in Tipperary alongside Dan Breen, Sean Tracy, Seamus Robinson. Sean Hogan was sitting in Michael Hogan's parlour that weekend, planning an attack on an RIC barracks near Grange Moakler, where Hogan was from. The attack never happened, but this is the proximity of these people we're talking about. So there would have been an educated guess to say, let's go. There would have been some plainclothes people in the crowd who would have been watching for Tipperary IRA as well. So there was a degree of educated guesswork here. Let's go. Let's do this search. And indeed, people who were involved in the morning, those squads, some of them were in Croke Park, including the Dublin goalkeeper, Johnny MacDonald. Johnny MacDonald was on an operation in Mount Street. He didn't fire a shot, but he was there. He went home, got a bag of guns out from underneath the floorboards, hid them, and then got his kit bag and went to Croke Park. Paddy Moran, who led the attack on the Gresham Hotel, was the secretary of Dunleary Commercials GA Club. They were playing in the curtain raiser. There's a photograph of him in Croke Park with the team. And that game wouldn't have been played maybe would have been 11 or 12 o'clock or something. So we were talking a couple of hours after the operation. So we have all these connections. So they would have gone, the search operation was the plan. We have the documentation to show this was the plan, etc. But as we said earlier, the guys in those armoured trucks, or the Crossley tenders, actually, they weren't armoured trucks, they were Crossley tenders, these kind of just flat back trucks with seats in the back.
Seats, yeah.
Yeah, went over, and the head of the auxiliaries and the black and tans were sitting too far back in the convoy. So the guys in the first two trucks who jumped out basically set the tone. And instead of forming lines and kind of getting arranged to go and perform a search operation, they just started firing.
Love GEA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
Where was Collins in all this? Obviously, I mentioned in the movie he's in the Gresham Hotel with Kitty. But in actuality, where was Michael Collins on this day?
Well, we'll give him some break on that. He might well have been in the Gresham with Kitty, but at some point early in the morning he headed out. He wasn't directly involved in the shootings. He had organised them, but he didn't fire a shot. But it's interesting how these lines tangle up. So just to rewind slightly to the night before. So he had spent part of the night before in a hotel with some other IRA figures, kind of nailing down the list. They were told that there's a raid coming in, black and tans coming into the hotel. So they scarpered. And he went to Shanahan's Bar in the Monto. Now, Shanahan's Bar was a Tipperary pub, but it was a place where you could bump into IRA men, soldiers, police, politicians, prostitutes, all the colours of the rainbow. So Collins went there for a late drink. And when he was in there, he said to anybody who was there, wouldn't go to that match tomorrow. Steer clear of Croke Park. Because he knew what was coming. And in his mind, atrocity is followed by reprisal. And maybe Croke Park could be a target. In fact, in Shanahan's earlier that night, Michael Hogan was also in there delivering those messages I mentioned. Tommy Ryan, who played midfield, was with him. And Tommy Ryan helped transport some guns and bullets to another hotel that night and came back ready to not play the game and volunteer for this, whatever the operation was on the Sunday morning. They didn't know. But by the time Tommy came back, kind of the talk had gone around that there was too much talk about what might be happening the following morning, so that the footballers were told, go to bed, concentrate on your game. So the following morning, the Bloody Sunday killings have occurred, the IRA side of the thing. And Collins is in Phibsborough.
Okay, so he's not that far from Croke Park.
He is, for anybody, again, who knows the geography of the area, if you go up Whitworth Road from the Hogan Stand side of Croke Park, it's the road that links Drumcondra and Phibsborough. And when you get to the top of it,
runs parallel with the canal.
Along the canal, exactly. And at the Phibsborough end, there's a bridge called the Cross Guns Bridge. And on Bloody Sunday morning, there was a prison warder from Portlaoise Jail called Patrick Berry. And he was sympathetic to the Republican cause. And he had messages from the prisoners in what was then Maryborough Jail to hand on to the Dublin IRA leadership. He was there with a couple of other volunteers. He didn't know who was coming to collect them. and it was Collins. And when he saw Collins, he lost his life because he knew what was after happening. The city was now in complete shutdown, checkpoints everywhere. And he was like, I can't be the guy who's going to be with Michael Collins when he gets captured. I just can't, like, for all sorts of reasons, I can't. And they walked back in towards town, away from the crowd that was heading to Croke Park. And indeed, they hit a checkpoint, black and tan, or an auxiliary, actually, I think it was, auxiliary. And he was giving them all sorts of abuse. Didn't look good. And Berry produced an old military barracks pass for Ship Street. And he said, we're all right. Showed him the thing. And the man said, all right, go on through. Berry knew an off license that was nearby. He spotted that the proprietor, who he also knew, was just going in the door. So he brought Collins over. He said to the guy, he said, you've always wanted to meet Michael Collins? Here he is. And your man got such a fright that he knocked a whole shelf of bottles trying to get his best bottle of sherry down for the boys.
Reaching for the Sandy Man.
For the Sandy Man. So he got down to Sandy Man and he poured a couple of drinks and the lads took them almost certainly. I don't care what anyone thinks about Michael Collins. You'll be settling your nerves after that. And they went on their way. So it's just, it was always, I remember when I was doing research for Bloody Sunday, finding that story in the Bureau of Military History Statements, which is this enormous resource of interviews that were done with nearly 1,800 people who were involved during the revolutionary period in everything from being in the Fianna all the way up to like fighting the GPO, War of Independence, Civil War, the whole thing. And Patrick Berry told that story and it was buried away in his witness statement. And I remember looking at it going, it just blew my mind, to be honest, that Collins was that close to Croke Park that morning in those circumstances. It's just like that. That's the kind of stuff, as I say, when you start on a Bloody Sunday kind of journey, I suppose, they're the kind of bits that just keep you going. They draw you in more, and it just changes. It just changes everything you ever think about the topic, how you do your work, how you think about the dead, their memories, how they were lost, how can we reclaim them, and suddenly you find yourself just spending years happily looking into these things and trying to figure bits and pieces out and put the whole thing together.
I have one final question, completely unrelated to the film, but mostly related to having read The Bloody Field, having heard you explain things today. And I think it's a question that a lot of people will reach to, given the description that you've made of Michael Hogan's connection to republicanism. Is it at all possible, given that he was the one player who died, that he was targeted within the raid?
So, short answer, I don't think so. And this is why. So the nature of the shooting to start with. So you imagine trucks land, police jump out, no discipline. First person that's shot is an 11-year-old boy, William Robinson, out of a tree. Second person shot is a 10-year-old boy, Jerome O'Leary, off a wall. They're not even thinking about what they're shooting at. When they go through the turnstiles and climb the wall that was there at that little corner at the Davin end of Hogan stand, and they go in, they start firing from the hip, revolvers. They're just shooting. Now, the ball was actually heading towards Michael Hogan and the man he was marking, Frank Burke, when the firing started. So they hit the dirt because Frank Burke was also an IRA volunteer. He had fought in the GPO. He had been given his first rifle by Patrick Pearse. He was in St. Enda's. He ended up being a teacher back there again. He had been in Frongok. He came back, won an All-Ireland medal hurling with Dublin in 1917. And he was still involved come the War of Independence. So anyone with any military experience, IRA-related experience, they all hit the dirt. So Hogan was on the ground crawling, trying to get off the pitch and blend in with the crowd, and he was shot in those moments. But at that point, Hogan was a commander in the local brigade in Grange Mokler. His brother Dan was a big fish in the IRA. He was in Monaghan, good friends with Ono Duffy, very active in Ulster. So if they were trying to target any Hogan, they probably would have gone after Dan Hogan at that point. Like, Michael Hogan was a 23-year-old lad in his second year with Tipperary, playing cornerback, trying to make his way on a very good football team. And terrified, by the way, about Mark and Frank Burke. That's a whole other story. But when you take all those things into account, and the fact, for example, you had Tommy Ryan, who was more active, arguably, than Hogan. And you had a couple of others as well. Jackie Brett from Mullinahone, who actually got involved in the Shemazel in the train on the way up the previous day with some soldiers. So, there was guys who, if they had any kind of target on their back, and I'm not saying those guys would have had a target on their back, but it would have been a bigger target than Hogan. This was just in the same way as all the other 13 were just tragic killings that should never have happened. Hogan was just one of those 14. And it's one of the things that I'll always think of when I think about Bloody Sunday. One of the big things that we wanted to do, and I say we because I wrote the book, but then after that there was, documentaries, podcasts, stage plays. The GA did huge work. There was 8 unmarked graves that needed headstones, 7 of them. So there was a lot of people helped to bring this story to another place. And the other place that we wanted to bring it to was that Michael Hogan wouldn't be the one that was left out on his own. That when we think of Michael Hogan, or any of them, that we think of the 14. And that's how we always like to remember this story now, that we tell this story through the 14.
I think that's as good a place to finish this episode. We will have, for our members, a bonus episode on what happened to the rest of the Tipperary team that played in the fixture on the day. So if you are not a member, please do sign up, and you can get early access to our next episode. You can get that bonus episode and many more, and lots of other perks that come with being a member of the Corja Over the Bar Brigade. So on that, we'll leave it. Until next week, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him and me.